Hey guys, this is Goku, and on this channel we talk about poker and ideas that can improve your life. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click the subscribe button because I'll be honored to have you here. Today we're gonna jump into the GTO trainer and we're gonna sum up the spot that we've been playing lately, MP2 Open versus Big Blind Call, a tournament spot played on 50 big blind stacks where we are the MP2 Open player. MP2 player opening to 2.5 BBs pre-flop and the big blind calls. So this spot has been fairly interesting for me. I think the overall EV loss score that we managed to do is pretty great. I was hoping to do something around 20 BBs of EV loss, and we actually managed to do something even better. So that's great. If we take a look at the frequencies that we did, they are quite on point. Well, slightly bigger on the betting or raising side. So we can see the GTO would bet or raise 621 times, and we would do that 653. So a small change, but it's all within reason, I would say. When it comes to checking or calling, again, a very small difference. What is it? 18 spots out of 320. So a very small amount. But yeah, it tells us that we need to work on our checking or calling and on our folding as well, and not just betting or raising. So we need to turn down our aggression just a little bit, just a tiny bit, when we are playing from the middle position versus the big blind. We can see we also should do a fair bit of folding. So yeah, we folded 14 times less than the GTO. And when we take a look at the betting structure that we did compared to the GTO, so top line is our plane and bottom line is GTO. So when we take a look at quads, we are not raising with quads. We are checking 75% and betting 25%. So, and the GTO is actually splitting is only checking 38%. So, half of the time that we are doing, it's betting 50% of the time and raising 12% of the time. So, sorry, it's full house, not quads. So this is something definitely we need to work on. We need to do less checking with the full houses and more betting or raising. When it comes to flushes, we can see we are over betting. We are betting too often and checking too less frequently. The GTO is checking 57% and betting 43% of the time, and we are checking 29 and betting 71. So again, something we can improve in our game. With straights, we can see again the solver is doing a lot of checking, 76%, and 24% it's betting, and we are over checking here for sure. We're doing too much of checking, 90% and just 10% of betting. When it comes to sets, we are a bit closer to the GTO play. We can see those differences in the percentages are much smaller. With trips, we are playing pretty much the same as the GTO. With two pair, those differences again are not that big, but we can see the solver likes betting more often than we do, and we do more checking than the solver and more raising, surprisingly as well, just a little bit more. With a pair, we're playing quite similar to the GTO. I guess we should do a tiny bit more of raising and a tiny bit more of betting. With ace high, as you can see, again, just the raising part we need to work on. So the solver is doing quite a bit more of raising and less of betting. And we are doing more betting, less raising, but the checking is the same. With king high, again, we need to, the solver is doing 22% of raising and 13% of betting, and we are doing more betting than raising, so that's something to work on as well. And with nothing, surprisingly, we are playing pretty much GTO poker, so that's good to know. All right, well, that's a quick summary. If we go through those sessions, we can see they all went pretty great. I mean, the biggest EV loss that we had was this session, minus 32 BBs. So very good, in my opinion. And we did also have a perfect session. So that's great. And I've prepared a few hands to go over that. These were the biggest EV losses. So let's do them. For the first one, we've got 6-7 of hearts on a tray 5 ace board. Villain checks to us. We bet a third of the pot, which is the ideal action. The solver check raises us to 8.5, and we re-raise to 21.5. And this is actually a very bad play. The solver is just calling here 99.99% of the time. It has this 0.01% raise in his arsenal of play, but we can see it doesn't like that at all. It's a bad play to re-raise here, and we shouldn't be doing that. So yeah, that's this one. You can see what happened here. The villain called, then bet, and I guess we shove, because what can we do here, really? But yeah, that's the solver actually again thinks it's a bad play to shove, but it doesn't really matter here because we're already pot committed anyway. So I guess it's that's why it doesn't like it here. But we didn't hit the flush, and we lost the pot versus 4-5 of diamonds. So yeah, the important here is here on this flop, we should never be re-raising. We should just be calling. Okay, let's do the next one. King, queen off on a 9-10 king. Villain checks to us. We bet a third of the pot. That's fine, but we should be conscious of the fact that 42% of the time we should bet 5 here. So 3/4 pot, and a third of the pot bet, we should bet 41% of the time. So the solver is also doing a little bit of checking here. Villain calls our bet. There's an ace on the turn. Villain checks again. We check behind. This is fine. You can see the solver is playing here a check 34% of the time. 61% of the time it's betting 3/4 pot bet. Okay, and a deuce on the river, deuce of spades. Villain checks, and we bet 3/4 pot bet, which is an ideal action, played 46.5% of the time, so that's all good. But the villain shoves for 45.5 BBs, and we fold. And actually the solver thinks it's a call 99.26% of the time. It's minus 2.53 BBs of EV loss falling here, and the solver almost never does it here. So surprisingly, with king queen off on a run out like this one, if we get raised on the river, we should be calling 100% of the time, which is surprising for me because, yeah, I think I'm overfolding here by a ton. I'm scared of flushes, of straights, of aces, and yeah, and we shouldn't be. We should just be calling here every time. Now I've got pocket tens on a 5-7 ace with 2 clubs, villain checks. We bet a third, which is the ideal action, played 98% of the time. Villain calls. There's a 9 of clubs on the turn. Villain checks. And we overbet the pot. And this is a bad play. Minus 2.47 BBs of EV loss. The solver is just playing check here 99.93% of the time. So pocket tens are definitely not a hand that you want to turn into a bluff. On such a run out, you should just check for value, I guess, for protection of your hand. And it makes sense. I don't know why I overbet here, but it's clearly a bad idea. Villain calls, 7 of spades on the river, villain checks, and we check behind, which is fine. The solver is checking here 74% of the time, and the villain's got an ace, so we lost that one. 10-9 of diamonds on a 4-9-6 with 2 diamonds. Villain checks to us. We bet a third, which is fine, but we should also be doing 3/4 pot bet, so betting 5, 51% of the time. Villain calls. There's an 8 on the turn. Villain checks. And we bet 3/4, which is a small EV loss and a rare play, as we can see. Solver really likes overbetting here with our hand and does that 98.4% of the time. Guess this is because we picked up some additional equity. Now a 7 also gives us the straight. We still have top pair with the flush draw, so I guess this is just the perfect candidate for the overbet, and that's why even betting 3/4 here is a small mistake. Villain calls. We have a 3 of clubs on the river. Villain checks. And we bet half pot here. And this is a bad play. We can see the solver actually does have this play in his arsenal. It plays it here 18% of the time. But the ideal action would be just checking behind 60% of the time almost. So I guess another 20% or so is betting more. So maybe betting more would be a less EV loss situation, but ideally we should just check here with our hand. I guess it's good enough, and we have enough of equity to just try and realize it with our top pair and not try to turn this hand into a bluff. All right, and we can see what happened. The villain folded. Okay. Ace-10 off on a deuce 8-3 with 2 hearts. Villain checks. We bet a third, which is the ideal action. Played 99.5% of the time. We get raised. And we call. And here, calling with ace-10 off is just a bad play. You should be folding it 100% of the time. It's just losing money to call a check raise here with ace-10 off. And it really makes sense. I don't know why I called that. Must have been really tired or something. But yeah, it should be a clear fold. We call that nonetheless. 8 of spades on the turn. Villain bet 8. I guess we call that because we were already committed into this hand. Calling here again is bad. We should fold 18% of the time, call 17, and I guess the rest is raising. So if we get involved into such a bad spot, I guess it's better to just, I mean, it's best to fold, but if we're not folding, then we should just be turning this into a very aggro spot and just raising and shoving. But there's an ace on the river. Villain checks, and I guess okay, we shoved, which is interesting, but at least it's not a big EV loss. It's 27.5% of the time play, and the solver actually likes here most betting 3/4 pot, but the villain folded. Again, another hand, we've got pocket tens on a queen 10-4 with 2 hearts, villain checks, we bet 3/4, which is the ideal action, villain calls, another queen on the turn, villain checks, and we're betting 3/4 here, which is a bad play. -2 BBs of EV loss almost. Which is quite surprising for me. I think it's a no-brainer spot to continue betting. But I guess the solver likes checking here 94% of the time because, well, it allows the villain to hit some of his hands. And yeah, really what the villain can have here, if he's got a queen, then he's gonna pay us off anyway. If he's got a draw, a straight draw or a flush draw, then he's probably falling here to a 3/4 pot bet. So I guess that's the reasoning behind checking here. And yeah, I definitely learned something on this spot, because for me it would usually be just an automatic bet here on the turn, but as we can see, it's much better to just check. And the villain did indeed fold, so you don't know what he had. Now pocket aces on a tray 5-10, rainbow, villain checks, we bet 2, which is the ideal action, villain calls, queen of clubs on the turn, villain checks, and we bet 7, which is fine, 43% of the strategy. The remainder of the strategy is overbetting. So with aces on such a run out, we should be just betting 3/4 or overbetting. Villain calls, king on the river, villain checks again, and we've shoved here. And shoving, as we can see, is actually a bad play. Almost -2 BBs of EV loss, and very rare play in the solver's arsenal. Ideally, we would bet 3/4 here, 54% of the time. And I guess betting half pot or betting the pot would be better options. Yeah. And let's see what the villain did. The villain called, and villains actually got us beat with king queen. And the last one, we've got 9-10 of hearts on a deuce 6-8. Villain checks. We continue for a third of the pot bet, which is the ideal action. The villain calls. 5 of diamonds on the turn. Villain now bets a third of the pot, and we fold. Okay, so as we can see, folding here is bad. The solver almost never does that here, just 0.04% of the time, and we should be calling here 99.5% of the time. We've just got a gut shot with 2 overcards, but I guess it's more than enough to call a third pot bet here, because, well, we can hit our hand and we can also bluff at some rivers. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. That would be it for this session, for this video, for this MP2 Open versus Big Blind Call spot. I really enjoyed playing it. I think we did an amazing score. Yeah, I hope the next spot we're gonna do will be a similar EV loss or better. I would be very happy to see that. We can work on our frequencies, get them even better. And yeah, if you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a comment below. If you stayed this long, just write GTO or ask any question you might have. Subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next one. We're gonna play another GTO spot. I'm not yet sure which one, but it will be fun for sure. Thanks for watching, and until the next one. Bye.